Good. Thank you. Hello. Hi. Okay. So first, there's another person on stage other than just myself, and he will introduce himself now.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not Clayton. I'm EA Sports or Eric. I am.
Get closer.
Thanks. I'm from the UMA community arm called the Super Umans, as well as contribute to Harvest Finance and a couple other DAOs in the space. Yeah.
And I am the community lead at UMA, and I've lived among a lot of the world's poor in different countries, and so this is a topic that's really close to my heart.
Yeah, so I guess just starting off based on the title, we wanted to kind of preface it with what we're going to talk through. It's not a sad story, right? We're not sitting up here watching like a infomercial asking for donations. I think the idea is to talk through a little bit of the ethos of DeFi and the ecosystem and where we've seen some progress, and hopefully inspire and challenge the group today to talk through where that could go, and here at ETH Denver, partially as people are building, what that could look like.
So we know that money is not what makes you happy, but we also kind of know that not having enough money can make you quite unhappy. And what did you want to add on this one?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, all of us are here and are able to do things like have a bank account, purchase a flight, set up for our financial future, and further the space. And so being able to talk about the mass populations that maybe aren't able to do that and what we could do to help them do that as well.
So just for some context setting, I'm going to talk about kind of what we already know, I think, in this room. So poor people are not profitable for banks. In terms of financial services, we know that you can either have a lot of money, and banks are happy to have you because they can lend it out for yield, or you can have a small amount of money and they can hit you with overcharge drafts. I'm curious in the room, who here has ever paid an overcharge fee at a bank? Okay, pretty good. Thank you for your honesty. Microfinance organizations are quite big and cool, but they have had a bit of mixed results. When you look into the research, a lot of times they are used both for capital investment, but also for just smoothing cash flows, which isn't actually how they're intended. They're also just quite expensive. So in the interviews I've done in the Philippines, for example, people just reported like, yeah, we know that option is there, but they're paying 25 to 30% APY often, and so they try to find other solutions. The third one here is that banks suck. That's all on that topic. So this stat right here I think is quite interesting. This is what you might not know. This comes from a book called Portfolios of the Poor, and I would very much recommend reading it if you're interested in poverty finance. What these people did is they went around and they incentivized people living in poverty to keep daily records of every dollar they made, every dollar they spent, and every dollar they put through some financial service, including peer-to-peer lending. And what we learned is that 185% of income, meaning almost 2 times over, is actually either lent or borrowed or repaid or used in savings clubs, etc. So they're pushed and pulled through these informal financial tools. And so what's the takeaway here is, we hear this stat, $2 a day, right? So many million people in the world live on $2 a day. But it's not like they wake up every morning and receive $2. That's the important thing here. And so they have this whole life built around, this whole financial experience built around making sure that they have that $2 a day and they have cash flow smoothing. So on the basis of this book, this is a quote from this book, and this is a video that I took in the Philippines. Money management is, for the poor, a fundamental and well understood part of everyday life. It's a key factor in determining the levels of success that poor households enjoy in improving their own lives. I butchered that a little bit, but I think you get the point.
Yeah, so with that, I think hearing about the population and what they have accessibility to, 607 million of these people have a mobile phone but don't have a bank account, right? So when we talk about maybe how to get them into crypto, I think is the next question, there's not a barrier to the technology already. There's a barrier to accessibility and ease of use of some of the financial tools that we all have on a day-to-day basis. So can I get a quick drum roll, please? Now we have the groundbreaking solution for how to get them into crypto. Play to earn. All right, play to earn is the solution. Here we go. Where are all of our Axie fans? I'm looking around seeing people on their phones pressing buttons. Maybe people are playing play to earn here today. Joking aside, I don't think we're here to debate, Ponzi-nomics as a sustainable income source or a long-term, solution to end world poverty. But what I do want to call out is how big that space is and the opportunity it presents for us, right? So looking at Axie as kind of the trailblazer in the space, in November of this year, they surpassed 1 million daily active players, and cumulatively in December, they passed 10 million players overall, right? It's one of the largest blockchain use applications, and while they started on Ethereum, now we're using Ronin for cost and performance issues. So what does that represent for us? We look through COVID pandemic, we talk through Philippines, Malaysia, Cuba, a lot of these poverty-ridden countries now are turning to play-to-earn games as an income source, and I'm not going to argue it personally. I don't think it's a sustainable economy, right? So how do we transition that opportunity into ability to set up for the financial future, ability for broader adoption in the space, and how do we build the infrastructure to support that as well?
Yeah, I think those are some great points. Personally, you can go ahead and skip. Personally, I was in the Philippines doing interviews about informal finance before the Axie sort of craze started. And I started asking people like, have you heard of Bitcoin? Have you heard of DeFi? Basically Bitcoin got mostly no's, occasionally yes. I think there was no DeFi yeses. And kind of a funny cycle or sort of a funny anecdote about this time in my life was like, so I was interviewing different people and also just living there for a little while, and I was using Tinder at the time. And this one girl ghosted me. But about a month ago, she messaged me to ask if I was an Axie manager, because now she knew about crypto.
You got your moment back up. All right.
Revenge.
No, not going to be your manager. So yeah, but P2E is the space, I guess, kind of looking at, how do we use that as a bridge into crypto and DeFi and into setting up kind of better decision making and behaviors for long-term financial success. So not saying this is the end-all be-all, but wanted to assert today gaming guilds. I've seen presentations today, even the last one from the TEC talking about stewardship, community building, leadership. Gaming guilds are blowing up, right? One of the big original ones, YGG, we're looking at it by the thousands, both of members as well as organizations standing up and building community. Can I get a poll here? Who has MetaMask on their phone? Okay, yeah. I think if you didn't, you probably do now because you had to sign up for your meal ticket. But the point is, a lot of these P2E games and the guilds kind of start with the basis of how to even transact on the blockchain, right? Start with your wallet, build on that, look at your fee on off ramps with Binance or Binance P2P, and then build into, okay, how do I do basic transactions? How do I cash out? How do I earn? So from there, building in those communities, not just those basics, now they're earning maybe a short-term income stream. Let's focus on education, let's focus on knowledge, help. Maybe it's you own an Axie, maybe it's you own a new income asset from the start, and then you learn to save portions of your money. Behaviors and habits, Clayton, as you mentioned, that maybe they do some social pooling today, but aren't used to or have tools that they're able to do now.
This basic infrastructure is really huge. So something that came up with that cell phone thing, right? There's 600 million people with smartphones, but without a bank. And so that means they have the technological piece they need. But now we have play-to-earn games, which are leading to basically gateways. That's kind of the biggest thing. So you have the technology piece of the puzzle, and now you have the financial infrastructure piece of the puzzle. I've literally gone into a 7-Eleven and sold Ether on a kiosk. They have this kiosk. You can like connect to one of their apps. You send the Ether to the address, and it prints out a little receipt. And the fees weren't great. I think it was like a 5% or something, and the spread might have not been generous. But you take the little receipt up to 7-Eleven desk, and they pay you cash out for it. And I think that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. So a little bit of an anecdote here. I've dabbled in NFTs, right? So trying to experiment and be interested in the space. Myself and a few others from the Superroom and DAO decided let's start our own little, play-to-earn guild. So early January we started. We bought a couple $1,000s worth of these mechanical horses. This game, for those not familiar, is called Peg Axie. And since then, I think it's really proved the appetite around this. We've had, no advertisement, minimal financial investment or any kind of human capital time associated with it, and it's flooded with 400 members. We have recently hired two of these folks on full-time to kind of manage the community and help focus on education, growth, communication, and 230 earning assets. Now, I don't know if this thing's going to go on for a while and be the next Axie or if it's going to flop in a month or two, but what I do know is that there's an opportunity for these folks today where they see this as an income source, and now how do we focus on education or onboarding into other DAOs, communities, into crypto, and using some of the tools and infrastructure to better their future. As a side note, I think a handful of our members now have actually started joining a couple DAOs I'm involved in, which I think is a really cool way to kind of see some of that progress and potential for the future.
And was this something you set out to do right from the beginning, or did this kind of happen by its own momentum?
No, I mean, honestly, I like to flip an NFT here or dabble in something, and I think someone kind of shilled this to me, and I said, yeah, let's try it out and experiment with it. And I don't know. I think it shows progress and opportunity, so I'm excited about it.
That's cool. So I'm going to talk a little bit about one, like just some low-hanging fruit as far as these financial concerns go with DeFi. So I talked about kind of this cash flow concern with regard to poverty finance. Savings is often quite high friction. Savings is quite expensive if you don't have access to formal financial tools. Just literally having somebody hold your money and keep it safe and reliably return it to you at your request is like quite a high thing to ask for, and people end up paying a lot of money for it. There's also just literally the fact of, so there's this phrase when you study poverty finance that you'll see a lot. It's called meaningful sums of money. And what that means is kind of obvious, right? A chunk of money. But actually getting that amount to buy something, to make like a life-changing investment, for example, is quite difficult. And so when we start to look into crypto solutions, I'm really grateful that we're seeing a lot more L2 and transaction scaling that's still Ethereum secured, so that saving solutions can be nearly cost-free. But then you can also start to tinker with things like crypto enforcement, gamification, and credit systems. So if we can think about leveraging all the tools that we've built for ourselves here, that we all are sort of familiar with just in the DeFi space in general, if we can start to onboard people who started learning play to earn and earn small amounts of money into these saving applications, I think we have just like a lot of real space to experiment, particularly with incentives design. So I'm going to touch on that right now. There's this really cool bank called Grameen Bank. So this is like a TradFi learning. It's based in Bangladesh, and its founder actually won the Nobel Prize for creating it. And one of the programs that they did that was quite successful was they offered people a higher APY to contribute to at least $1 a month for 5 to 10 years. So this has been credited with the original yield farm. I think this predated the synthetics farming contract. And it was quite successful. So the bank's own deposits went up 300% in 3 years. And so you can see how this example would carry over extremely well to crypto. So, but you could remove that intermediary, right? You wouldn't have any custodian of these funds. You wouldn't have any delay. And you can start to insert like different economic opportunities into this. You can insert other kinds of incentives. And so that's something that we're going to talk about here in a moment.
Yeah, so I'll touch on that a little bit. I love the half meme joke to synthetics there, because you really could do some of these types of things. So with UMA specifically, wanted to touch on a couple ideas of maybe how this is working or how it could work. Not going to dive into all the technical intricacies, but one big part of UMA is their flexible optimistic oracle. And one of the needs with that is we've seen increased Oracle adoption over the past year, and so there's a need for human verification of some of the Oracle requests that come in to validate those. And so now we've started a optimistic proposer program for a human to validate data and then validate those mechanisms. And rather than Ponzi-nomics, where it's an inflationary token that's going to dump after a couple months, this is a little bit capitalistic, but someone can come into the space, provide a service, and earn a sustainable compensation for that service while contributing to overall adoption of a broader piece of infrastructure within DeFi.
What excites me about this, so what excites me about play to earn and this earning opportunity is like, so we have the Super Uman DAO, and there's a big opportunity in this DAO, and a lot of DAOs right now, to show up as an anonymous name with a cartoon face and earn thousands of dollars a month. And it's like many times the salary you could get in most of like rural Philippines, for example. But there's like certain, even though it's permissionless technically, there's certain like cultural and intellectual and just like marketing conditions that need to happen before you can get there. But what I really like about this combination is like you come for the games and you come for this like play to earn income. But then there's opportunities that we think will actually be like more long-term sustainable returns, so that we could imagine this program going on for a longer time. And I just really like this combination of things working together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one other piece we wanted to touch on, maybe a little bit of alpha for the group, not quite ready for prime time, but the concept of the optimistic rewarder through UMA. So here, distribute individual NFTs to users, and based on any criteria that can be defined by a rule set, then can use the optimistic oracle to incentivize behaviors or actions, right? So that may be interacting with a protocol. It may be, Clayton, to your point, the Grameen example could be staking something in a specific place to incentivize savings. And I would love to see that in this space develop into how do we encourage longer term financial behaviors to set people up for the future. I think even more broadly, when you talk about new protocols coming up, instead of airdropping tokens to someone because they've previously interacted with something, how cool would it be to use the optimistic rewarder and incentivize them to use for the first time, or to help educate and market on the new protocol as well?
So to that point, here is a picture of Hart Lambert presenting on the rewards as a service in this very room, and he's sitting right there if you want to ask him questions after our chat.
Yeah, and I guess kind of where we'd want to leave folks with or have a little discussion about is kind of what else in DeFi or what else are you building here at ETH Denver could contribute and kind of further this space. I think Clayton and I very much feel like there's progress and there's inroads to continue here, but obviously lots more opportunity to address, and would love kind of following the overall spirit of DeFi to continue working towards that together.
Yeah, definitely. So after this talk is over, but after questions, we will stand outside for a minute if people want to kind of let us know what they're building. We'd love to touch base. We also have our Twitter and stuff. You can send us some DMs. Make sure to get your POAP for attending this talk.
When POAP.
When POAP, now POAP. And yeah, love to hear some questions or anecdotes, feedback, thoughts, feelings.